Am I? What is up, Z-Pack? It's your boy Z-Dog MD. We're out of Studio Z. It's Friday. Friday. Gonna do a show on Friday. Okay, this is what we're talking about today, guys. It's gonna be off the proverbial chain because we're talking about it's graduation season. If y'all haven't seen my 1999 UCSF graduation speech, you need to go see that just because I need the views. But second of all, it gives you a glimpse into the Z that would eventually evolve and stand in front of you. But more importantly, since it's graduation season, we're gonna be hearing about valedictorians and salutatorians and all kinds of atorians. Here's the question, does it matter? Do your grades matter in high school or college? Do they actually predict future success? And why does this matter for healthcare? It matters for healthcare because so many of us, especially physicians, we're like valedictorians, salutatorians, and yet we have the most broke-ass system on the planet. What's going on?
Were you a valedictorian, Z?
No, Tom, I was not. I was a salutatorian.
Lame.
The hell is that?
You're lame, okay?
It's the second runner-up, first loser.
Okay, second place is first place for losers. That's what it. Well, so let's talk about this. Okay, because I want to tell my own story. First of all, because I'm still butthurt that I got a B. Okay, but second of all, it turns out there's a book come out. I forget what it's called, but there was an article recently that valedictorians, and salutatorians, although they tend to do very well in life, they have professional careers, they, by all accounts, are successful and stable, and 40% are in the top echelons of their jobs, and 90% have stable careers. Do they go on to actually make a big dent in the universe, lead massive change, or become billionaires? And the answer seems to be absolutely not. They don't. And so the question is, are the tiger moms of the world that are pushing their kids to get perfect grades and do really well in school and become valedictorians and give that really boring speech that you give, are they doing a disservice to our children? Should we be encouraging a different kind of out-of-the-box thinking, pursuing of your passions and creativity? Tom Heineber, you had a 1-point-some GPA.
1.6, people, and I never graduated college. What's up?
That's higher than I thought. You came, 3 credits shy from graduating college, and then
Technically I'm still only 1 class away from graduating at college, but I said screw it.
And so here's a question, guys, and we'll only make fun of Tom every single minute that he's alive about this. But this all being said, it turns out there are theories as to why valedictorians and salutatorians don't change the world, but they actually succeed within the parameters of the rules of the world. And here are the theories. Number 1, school is about rules. It's about pleasing the authority figure, which is the teacher or the establishment, and thereby getting the best grades, A's. If you do that, it shows that you work hard, you're good at obeying rules, and you have discipline. That's all you need to become a doctor. That's all you need to become a nurse. That's all you need to become a pharmacist. But is it all you need to actually transform a system, to affect real change, to become really powerful and wealthy, if that's something you want to be? And the answer is maybe not. And in fact, it may actually be a hindrance, because by obeying all those rules, are you following what you're really passionate about, or are you just studying what they give you? Now, here's my own story, Tom, and then we'll get into your 1.6 GPA. So it turns out, and I would argue that as a system, healthcare is full of valedictorians and salutatorians and people who did really well in school.
Oh, Z, quick shout out. Snarky nurses in the house.
Oh, hell yeah! That's my peeps right there, making those dank memes that we steal and repost with credit, because they're the bomb. So I gotta say this, we're full of those people, and now we have a system that is full of inertia, it's full of rules, it's full of bureaucracy, it's full of joint commissions, it's full of macras and MIPS, and is this helping us? Do we need mavericks? Here's my own story, because I fall in a hybrid category, and my story is odd, but I think actually typical of illustrating this issue. So in high school, I found school to be pretty easy, so I wouldn't study and I would get A's. Now, I get into my senior year, and I took French, 3 years of French. Can't remember a word of it, je vais à la plage. And our teacher, who was beloved, got sick. She got leukemia. And at the time, none of us knew what the hell leukemia was. We were high school kids, and we're like, she got cancer? Is she gonna die? What's gonna happen? Everybody was pretty devastated, so she disappeared for a while. And they replaced her with a 22-year-old new teacher who had lived in France for a long time. But I hated her. I hated her instantly, and I'll tell you why I hated her, Tom. I hated her.
She was French.
Because she was French.
That's a valid reason. That's as valid as anything, Z.
You know what? I will not abide anti-Francophilia in this house, okay?
Don't you speak communist in here, Z.
You can speak your anti-French, you can hate on Macron all you want, Logan, but I'm not going to do it.
You know what their national flag is? The white flag, because they surrender. All the time.
We have at least 3 Z-backers in France, okay? And they
do you know why the streets are paved in Paris? Or I mean, I fucked up this joke.
Damn it, Tom!
I'm sorry.
They're both fired. Okay, that's what a 1.6 GPA will get you right there. Okay? So anyway, this new person, I hated her. I didn't respect her. I felt like she was only 2-3 years older than me because I was probably 18 at the time. And I didn't get the sense that she had a command of teaching this subject. So I tuned out. Well, it turns out that was enough not to be playing by the rules, so my solid A turned into a B+. Well, that throws you out of the running for valedictorian instantly, right? Now you're automatically salutatorian. Now this is what happened. This happened
AKA loser.
Loser! Second place. First place for losers. So at this point, and this is such first world problems, at this point, my colleagues in the class, who were also the big nerds who had the A's and played by the rules, they also, some of them got B+, because I really honestly, in retrospect, I think the teacher she didn't really suffer people who thought they were too smart very well. Like it was kind of like a thing. And that's appropriate actually, because we were assholes. So all this being said, they would go with their parents crying like, this is the only thing keeping my child from being valedictorian or having a 4.0, and can you do something? And then of course, they changed the grade to an A-. I heard about this and I'm like, should I go in and beg for my A- from a person I don't respect in a course that I hate? No, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not going to do it. So what ends up happening? I keep the B+. I become salutatorian along with like 30 other people because there was grade inflation.
Lame.
And, but I kept what I felt was my integrity. I wouldn't do it. Now here's the thing. What ended up happening in college? I ended up getting hella B's. Because in my sophomore year, I was like, physics, OChem, math, all the stuff at once. And I don't know, I dabbled in certain experimental things, hung out with friends who were not science majors or pre-meds, and had what they call a childhood and a college experience. And I grew as a person, and I took risk, and I got interested in like the nature of consciousness and other things that have stuck with me for the rest of my life. And so my GPA in college was like a 3.7 something. And what happened? I did a lot of crazy stuff that got me into one of the top tier schools in California, UCSF, because there was an out-of-the-box component to what I did, and UCSF was one of the schools that actually appreciated that. So here's a question, what am I doing now? Well, I enter a medical world that does not appreciate out-of-the-box thinking, doesn't appreciate creativity, certainly doesn't encourage humor, and for 10 years I do that, and I'm beaten down and beaten down and beaten down. And finally I'm like, oh hell no, make the videos, put them on YouTube, move to Vegas, start a clinic, and now we're here trying to change the world with you. Would that have happened if we played by the rules, if I was a straight A student and all the other things? I'm gonna say no. So here's a question. What should we be promoting for our kids, Tom? Because Tom, you were a 1.6, but you are a very smart person. You are passionate about what you care about, which is Bitcoin.
Hell yeah.
And also cheeseburgers and occasionally tacos. Should we look down on you for being a couple credits shy of college and having a low GPA, whereas now without your creative element, I wouldn't be able to do the show? What do you think?
Well, you know, all right, I heard an interesting story a long time ago that there are these dolls, I think they're called like ugly dolls or something like that, and they're these like weird looking monster things, stuff like that. And the theory behind it is when you ask a child to draw like a bear, say, they'll give you this really crazy interpretation of this abstract bear. And then the teacher goes, that's not what a bear looks like, sweetie.
That's right.
And then you just drill it down and drill it down and drill it down. And so when you're in kindergarten, when you ask kindergartners if they're creative, all the hands go up, right? When you ask high schoolers go up, scattering of hands.
Yeah.
So it gets beaten out of you.
And Sir Ken Robinson gave one of the top TED Talks in all history about this, about how education, and I had the pleasure of meeting him actually at a thing, and we talked for like a good hour, and the sense I got is here's a guy who does not suffer the system and any any stunting of creativity lightly, and it's been his life's cause to try to rage against that. And this is true. I think our current school system does really beat this out of you. So what this study was looking at is like the average GPA of millionaires is 2.9. All right, that's the average GPA of millionaires. They are not the valedictorians. They are not the perfect citizens. They are the ones who take risk and who, more importantly, I think, follow what they're passionate about instead of doing what other people tell them they should be passionate about.
You ever heard the A's end up working for the C's?
I haven't heard that, but it's true.
It's true.
The A's work for the C's. How many of us who were A students, right, end up working for some administrator who was not an A student, or some big, big company that's run by a person who's kind of an out-of-the-box thinker?
Well, you were a good student, right? Like you did all your assignments on time and everything?
Generally did.
I was a crap student, which took a lot more mental energy because I was always trying to figure out ways to get out of things.
Yeah.
So I was always expressing my creativity, even in not doing work.
So you had all this energy and intelligence, and you were putting it into getting out of work, which is because you were passionate about doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Like illegal drugs, crashing your car into trees, whatever it is that kids do.
That's right.
And so, but this is the thing. So for me, that creative element came out in a bit of an attitude that I had. So yeah, we did music and we did all of that, but like I was the guy who would sit in the back of the class with his feet up and be a jerk. And the teachers picked up on that because I could breeze through the classes because I was gifted with a degree of photographic multiple choice memory. And the general coursework wasn't hard for me at the time. Now, college, it totally changed. College, things got hard. And you know what? I found college to be harder than med school because med school was memorization. Med school is total bullshit, by the way, just in case you're wondering. The first 2 years are just you just memorize a shit ton of facts and you regurgitate them. And the facts are told to you by professors who barely touch patients and who are just passing on these facts from of old. And maybe they're a researcher, but half the facts aren't even, they're going to be proven to be false and they don't tell you which half. And so it's a continuation. And I don't know how nursing school is, but I suspect it's a similar idea. It's a continuation of this idea that they just squeeze the creativity out of you. And then people ask, how can a 20% of the GDP healthcare be so fucked up? Well, it's really quite simple. Take the way we train and how we screen medical students. You know, Tom, you would never get into medical school. Why? You don't have the numbers. You don't have the required discipline to take the test and all of that. But here's the thing. Would you be a good doctor if you actually knew the casework and you were an apprentice and all that? I suspect you would, because you would actually see through the bullshit and treat the patient as a patient. We don't screen doctors that way. We don't screen healthcare people that way. We screen them based on, can they play by the rules and regurgitate shit, and it's totally crap. UCSF was actually better than most, actually, because they looked at crazy candidates. They wanted that. DO schools do that too, in general.
We titled this Tiger Moms Are Doing This Wrong, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting because, like, Tiger Mom to me says, like, Asian mom, like, first generation, second generation, right? So they're telling their kids, like, yeah, play by the rules. These are the rules, play by them, get ahead. And to some degree, they're not wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And maybe their kids don't always have that luxury of, like, carving their own path.
Well, that's a great point. Let's back into this for a second, because I think there's something important here. Is it wrong to tiger parent your kids? In other words, go get good grades, play by the rules, be a good citizen, and then you will succeed. You are not lying to them. You will succeed. You will be 90% of valedictorians have a stable, awesome career by any societal means, and 40% are in the upper echelons of whatever company or career they're in. So yes, you will have stability and you will have a predictability. And I think for some, and for me to some degree, that was an important reason that medicine was so attractive, because if you play by the rules, you get a certain reward. What they don't tell you, though, is that if you're not true to yourself in that process, who you actually are and what you're passionate about, you can have all that success and it will lead to misery.
Right.
And that's what our tiger moms are wrong about. They're wrong that the kids will be happy if they achieve this success. They were right that they will achieve success. And this is my feeling, is like, be honest with your kids. If they're passionate about something, let them explore it, and you can also give them the discipline, because the more disciplined you are, the more you may be able to explore what you're really passionate about in a very efficient way, instead of being, chaotic.
He's retired now, so I'm just going to tell the story. But my dad was an executive at a newspaper, and he gave me this speech one day. He was in charge of HR, and he was their lawyer. and he had to fire people when it was time to fire people. And he gave me this speech, and he said, I had to fire the assistant sports editor today, who is a longtime friend of mine. Do you know the reason why I fired him? I said, no. He said he would sell C32, number C32, on an Excel spreadsheet, and he was costing the company money. So we just axed him. And he was like, never let yourself be C32 on some spreadsheet, right? Because I worked hard, you can go carve your own path.
That is amazing. That is amazing. See, and this is the thing, how many nurses, how many pharmacists, how many dietitians, how many physical therapists feel like C32 in their organizations? They feel like that cell on a spreadsheet that is the first to get cut if they go on social media and say something about how they feel unsafe at work. Or if they go on Twitter and say, man, our staffing was scary today. Or they don't kiss a patient's ass who's abusive verbally and physically to the staff. How many people feel like C32 is about to be deleted by whatever company is hiring them? A lot of us, judging by the emails I got from yesterday's live cast about the nurse who was basically tortured in Illinois. And that's one of our record live casts, so it clearly hit a nerve, and I've gotten so many messages about it. If we're trying to tiger parent our kids, I think what your dad did was very wise. And although, they would argue, well, but now Tom has a 1.6 GPA and didn't finish college. Yeah, but Tom is actually doing, the way that he's worked his life, he's more successful than many people at his age, and he's following what he cares about. He gets to do what he cares about. And he's lucky because he had a dad who could support him, right, at the time.
That story I told is accurate, but it's also a luxury that I had provided for me in my life.
That's right.
It's a luxury to be able to have your own path and have a parent that can help you out a little bit financially.
What do you think about this, though? So say you grew up in a ghetto with a single mom who was struggling, is on Medicaid and welfare. Would it be the best advice to that child not to follow your passion and your dreams, but to work really hard, play by the rules, kiss the right buttocks, so that at least you'll have that stability that then you give to your kids the opportunity to be more creative? I don't know the answer to that.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
My father-in-law is that person.
Tell me about that.
Welfare. His mother left him on the curb in San Francisco with the grandma, and blazed his own path, made a bunch of money so the kids could go off and do whatever they wanted.
But how did he make that money? Was he living his own passion and creative, or was he the disciplined valedictorian type?
He dropped out of high school.
There you go.
Yeah, dropped out of high school. Started
so he wasn't the valedictorian.
So there's a
type at all.
counter argument that he followed his passion. But here's the thing: is your dad a typical person, or for the majority of people who are struggling in poverty, is a straight prescription for hard work, discipline, playing by the rules the answer?
Do you think it's nature or nurture?
No, I think it's both. It's always both. Yeah, it's yes and. Yeah. So it's going to require a bunch of things. You may be born with a certain gift to be disciplined, or you may be Tom Heineber, who has the worst ADD I've ever seen, and I thought mine was bad. Like, I have to rein him in, but he's able to be creative in a way that other people can't be, because he's making connections. He's jumping to them constantly.
Now, there's a problem with being how I am too, because I am overly defiant. I think in my younger years, you could have classified me as oppositional defiant disorder.
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter to me what kind of authority figure you were. If you were in a position of authority, it was just like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
I was diagnosed with that as a kid.
Oppositional defiant? You?
Yeah.
Logan's super sweet. So it just shows what happens in childhood stays in childhood a lot of the times, right? Yeah. I mean, I think what I had was I was a pleaser. Like, I like to please people, but then if I was pushed into a situation where I felt like I was being creatively stifled, I would push back in a way that was it was excessive. So a lot of my teachers actually hated me because I was the snotty kid in the back who thought he knew everything and didn't respect them.
What's your IQ?
My IQ? I haven't checked it in a long time, so I don't know.
Hey, listen to this.
It was enough to get me into the gifted and talented program as a kid, whatever that is. So I don't know what that means.
Listen to this. Foodie Tran, great name,
Foodie
says this podcast has been completely useless. I think Foodie is a little bit of was maybe raised by a tiger mom, and he's like, get to the point.
He's like, is this going to get me A? Am I going to get into become a pre-med? Now, he may be right. It may be totally useless, but if it isn't, if one person is helped by our rantings to become a better tiger mom, then we win.
To get worse grades.
To get worse grades. Like, kids are either going to be dropping out or they're going to be studying AF.
Let's talk about your kids.
Yeah.
I would classify Mrs. Dog MD as a tiger mom.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Dog MD. Okay, so here's the story. Remember, I was salutatorian because I refused to kiss ass for that last A, and then that followed me into getting worse grades in college, and yet still somehow being here. My wife, Mrs. Dog, was trained in a public school in Columbia, South Carolina, got perfect grades, beyond perfect, went to like the NIH in high school to do research. In high school. Her parents, first generation Chinese, as tiger parents as you can imagine. They all played piano, they all studied constantly, they went to frickin' math camp and academic decathlon. She gets into Harvard, pretty much does great in Harvard, goes to Stanford Medical School, does great, and then does internal medicine and is miserable, does the residency. It's just like, this is the worst. I studied all my life for this and I'm so unhappy. And then did something that was actually kind of a maverick move, which is threw it away and said, I'm going to retrain in radiology because that's my passion, because I love the analytic nature of it. It's just who she is. And then she's super happy doing that thing. But she went on a path. If she had listened to her parents, she'd be an internist or a pulmonologist somewhere, suffering and miserable for all that work she put in. Now, how she raises our kids with me, it's a balance. So I'm the guy who's like, dude, let's go play guitar and have fun and da-da-da. And Mrs. Dog's like, all right, we're practicing violin. And then, you're not going to sit there playing on the iPad. We're going to practice some math. And then you can go out and swim, and then you're gonna go run outside, and you're gonna do this. So she is absolutely, like, downtime is not an option for the children unless I'm running it and she's gone.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting distinction.
Listen, this is something that needs to be said too. It's a little bit BS to just keep being like, follow your passion, follow your passion. Like, society needs people in STEM fields.
Totally.
Not everybody can go be an artist or
Totally.
whatever,
I agree with that. That's why I think I'm not telling people like, don't tiger parent your kids,
right,
or don't become a valedictorian. I actually do think, Logan had brought up, is it nature or nurture? It's in some people's nature to really want to be in a rule-based environment where they have boundaries and rules, and they excel in that. And we need those people in the world. And in fact, a lot of medical disciplines are like that. You do need that degree of discipline. Like, you cannot be Tom Heineber and be a cardiothoracic surgeon. You just wouldn't have the discipline to make sure you went through the checklist, to make sure you did all that. There'd be hearts on the wrong side of the chest when you're done.
Listen, dude, you don't have the surgical knowledge or the steady hands to pull off a procedure like that.
What's that from?
Super bad.
Superman.
Super bad.
Oh, super bad. Oh, okay. I was like, I don't remember that in Superman. Superbad's an amazing movie.
McLovin.
Yeah, love McLovin. Chris Miller, I had a buddy in his 50s, GP back into nursing school. GP for it. What does that mean, GP for it? Chris, you're confusing me, buddy. So you can be like us and do both. Work as a rule-based job and let your creativity and snark out on the side, says Snarky Nurses. I'm going to hit like on that. Yeah. This is what it is, guys. So the Z-Dog thing was a way to reconnect with the creative side. But what it's evolved into now is something that we're hoping together we're going to change the world with. How do you do that? You can't do it by playing by the rules. You have to do something. I was told in no uncertain terms by colleagues, do not put videos on YouTube. You're going to lose your job. You're going to make us look bad. You're going to get fired. The administration's going to be mad, all those things. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyways because screw you guys. Because either I do this or I burn out and I hurt somebody inadvertently by making a medical mistake. So I'm making a choice, right, to follow what it is my story. It's not so much about following your passion, because that's such a cliche thing.
Yeah,
it's about
cliche.
living your story. And whatever your story is, only you're going to find it by knowing. When your elephant is upset, it's often because you're walking a path that elephant has no business being on. Like, you're an ophthalmologist because your dad wanted you to be in a medical specialty, but you knew you didn't have the discipline to ace the MCAT, so you became an optometrist. Okay? So you're an optometrist. Now, if you love eyes, that's your story and you're walking your passion. If you don't, you're living someone else's story, right? So that's where I think I would argue find your story and live it. And often it takes adversity for us to recognize something happens in our lives. We look at it and go, this isn't my story.
How much of this is just like the education system in America is so fundamentally broken because we're still based on sort of British empirical rule, and they prioritize things like penmanship. Who gives a shit about penmanship? We have computers.
Cursive is awesome.
My daughter's school teaches cursive still.
Damn straight.
And penmanship is a huge deal.
Well, that's because to run the British Empire, you had to communicate with pieces of paper that were sent across many thousands of miles. So people needed to be able to read it legibly.
Yep.
So there was a cause for it back in the day. There's no cause for it now.
Cynthia Ayers says the word is authenticity. I think your authenticity is another way of saying being true to what it is and who it is you are, what your story is. Now, Disney has made a fortune with the trope, be true to yourself. If you're a princess, be a princess. But it's not quite that easy. It's about, first of all, finding out who you are. I mean, all of life is a coming of age story in the end. So what do you think, Tom? Is there anything else we want to say about valedictorians?
Nah, just that, you're wasting your time.
So that's the Tom approach. My approach is a hybrid approach. Study as hard as you can and then break all the damn rules. You know what I had an attending tell me in medical school? Look, it's clear you don't like any of these rules. It's clear you don't like the hierarchy of medicine. Why don't you do me a favor? You're going to fail this game if you don't at least pretend. So learn the rules, play by them, and then later when you're in my place, you can break the rules. Well, I thought that was really interesting advice, because what happens is you do learn the rules, you do play by them, and then you become so absorbed in the matrix of conformity that you never step out of it. And then you end up losing 10 years of your life.
Oh, when me and Logan went to film school, the first thing every film student wants to do is, I'm going to break all the rules. I'm the next Steven Spielberg. You guys just don't know it yet. And our professors would be like, why don't you assholes learn the rules?
Learn the rules.
And then you can break the rules.
Yep.
But you have to learn them first.
That's exactly right. I'm a big believer in that. I'm a believer in paying your dues, in suffering, in actually going through the phases of being materialistic, being achievement oriented, doing all those things, and developing a degree of discipline. Then and only then do you realize, okay, you evolve past that and you go, okay, I don't need this, but it's part of me, so I have these tools to now pursue my story. But it took me a long time to get there, and there were periods where I felt genuinely like I was living someone else's life. So on that note, should we call the code on this here?
Let's call the code.
All right, Z-Pack, have a great weekend. If you haven't seen our episode on the nurse hostage situation at Delnor, go back and watch it. I reposted it today, and it was live yesterday. I think it's an important discussion about workplace violence and how we conform with systems that devalue us. We can't do it anymore. We have to stand up and fight. And if we can help be a voice for this, then we're going to do it, and that's part of our mission. All right, Z-Pack, we totally out.
Cursive is amazing. These two have terrible handwriting.
Herb says I would be a great lawyer, and I agree. Call me with all your legal problems, people.
I hate you both.
Go, 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 go. I'm alright. Uh-huh.